A pleasant good morning to you, Barbados, and all of our listeners. My name is Kelly Conley, a proud resident of the Christchurch South constituency. It is my greatest pleasure this morning to introduce to you not only the opposition leader, also the leader of the Democratic Labour Party and the Member of Parliament for Christchurch South. We, the residents in Christchurch South, view our leader, a man of integrity, a God-fearing man, and also a man who loves people and his country. So this morning, I'm not only introducing him, I'm also endorsing him. He will address you on national and constituency concerns. Also with us this morning, we have Senator Ryan Walters and Felicia Dujon. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the opposition leader, Mr. Ralph Thorne.
Thank you, Kelly, and good morning, media. Good morning, visitors and other guests. So much has been happening in Barbados in recent times, and one may well say too much has been happening. I don't wish to give the public the impression that this is some kind of a one-man show. We all know that I'm in Parliament alone, and I always say I'm alone, but I'm not lonely. And the evidence that I'm not lonely is with me here this morning. I want to encourage among the members and would-be candidates of the Democratic Labour Party, I want to encourage among them the concept of a team, that we are functioning as a team. I know that in Barbados, we are presently on a trajectory in which political power and political office and meaningful political office seems to reside in one person. That is not our content, that is not our style. So I'm pleased today that I have with me Mr. Senator Ryan Walters, who will address on some matters, and Ms. Felicia Dujon, who is also a spokesperson for the party. We all know that the main issue before us now is the problem at the fish market across the street. Everybody now knows of the devastation and destruction to the fishing fleet in Barbados. Ms. Dujon visited yesterday, and I want Felicia to bring the experience of that visit to Barbadians. I know people have been reading a bit of it in the media, but on behalf of the Democratic Labour Party, I would ask Felicia to give her impressions as to the visit she made there. I did not myself make the visit, so I would ask Felicia to say something to Barbadians as to what she observed there yesterday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Opposition Leader. Good morning, Barbadians. Good morning, everyone. My visit to the Bridgetown port yesterday was an eye-opener for me. It was very devastating. Though the spirit of the fisher folk was of course, in high spirits, of course, we have to understand that these are individuals that have lost their livelihood. And this is a very serious matter that we have to take introspective of how we think about the basic needs of those individuals within our society. Too often we have neglected those industries, not only agriculture, but the fishing industry, because we believe that those industries do not impact on our society. And I believe that this experience will teach us something that we need to take over for generations to come. The reality of what we're dealing with is that our fisher folks did not have a choice. And I want to make that very clear. What we're seeing on social media, the blame, or what we call the victim blaming of our fisher folks, need to stop. The reality is the policy makers were the ones to advise our fisher folks on what is the best way to secure the vessels. And this was not done. But this morning, we're seeing those damaged boats and those damaged vessels being halted out. It tells us again that this administration does not want to take in accountability. There's no accountability with this government. And as a result, poor people, our civilians, our citizens, the common man has to suffer because someone or some individuals did not think or believe that it was important enough to advise them. What I saw yesterday broke my heart, because these are people that serve us every day. These are people we go to the fisher market every Saturdays. They make sure that they're there to serve us. And we're going to turn our backs on them because we believe that they did not make the right decision. It's not their fault. We as a country have to understand there's a difference between politics and governance. And what we experienced there is something, this is history. We have never experienced that before. And we need to understand that we need to support our fisher folks. We need to support the common man, because we place our votes in individuals to ensure that proper mechanisms were in place, particularly during times of natural disasters. So no, we're not saying that the government caused the hurricanes or they had any impact on the hurricanes. What we are saying that they did not prepare the way that they should. And if you see the broken-hearted men and women yesterday, you'll understand where I'm coming from. They have families, they have bills to pay just like us. And how are they going to recuperate? We need policies, and right now they need to be compensated. They need to be compensated. And as a matter of fact, we are calling for an investigation as to exactly what occurred, that those fisher folks were left at the perils of this government and are suffering because of mismanagement of this matter that occurred there. I don't think I have any much to say, but what I will say is that we need to support our people. We need to support them when they're at the lowest and do not victim blame them. Because yes, we may understand that they could have halted the vessels at the places, but with what? With what resources? With what resources? We as a people have to understand that we have to continue to support each other. And at times, particularly now, we have to put the politics aside and ensure that the persons that we put in place to ensure that there are proper mechanisms in place to secure, whether it's the vessels, to secure our major industries, that such matters is done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dujan. And you would have heard Felicia refer to a governance model. And it is this governance model that I think has been responsible for this crisis. In the aftermath of the destruction of the boats, who are you seeing? One minister, who happens to be the prime minister. And Barbadians are in some doubt as to who is the minister responsible for that facility, who ought to have been the minister responsible for the removal of those boats to a safe place. We're not sure. I think I know who is that minister, but the fact of the matter is the prime minister has made herself prominent in relation to that crisis. Barbadians quite correctly relate the crisis to the entertainment at Kensington. And who was the minister most prominent at Kensington? The Prime Minister. Charles Griffith, the Minister of Sport, seems to have disappeared from Cricket World Cup. But if Adrian Ford, Minister Adrian Ford, was the minister responsible for the blue economy, he seems to have disappeared as well. And that is why we came here as a team this morning. You cannot, in a modern democracy, promote one man or one woman government. You can't be all over the place like Punka. Let your ministers function. Let your ministers have enough self-confidence and enough time. But I insist on self-confidence, the confidence to go into their domains, into their portfolios and function. It is clear that the cabinet of Barbados was focused on the cricket, and I don't make any apology for saying that. We knew days in advance that this hurricane was coming. And I will repeat what I said in the Parliament Yard. They were partying at Kensington. There was revelry. It was more important to walk onto the field with Chris Gale and to pose off with Cigarfield Sobers. It was more important to do that than it was to pay attention to the fisher folk in this country and the property of the fisher folk in this country. So that we are placing the blame on government for this. And we do that unapologetically, that, as Felicia said, those boats ought to have been moved. I watched a video from Jamaica this morning. What is happening in Jamaica? Groups of men are hauling the boats out. I understand the same thing has happened in other islands. I understand the same thing happened at Six Mains. I understand the same thing happened at Tank Bay and Pile Bay. What was so wrong with Bridgetown? Somebody was at cricket. Somebody was enjoying the final. And now those men today are without a livelihood. They have their lives, but they're without a livelihood. So we are offering ourselves seriously as a viable alternative to administer the affairs of government in this country. I don't think we need any greater evidence that this government is failing the people of Barbados. Yeah, I don't think we need any greater evidence than that. There's a lot of incompetence. The Constitution says that a prime minister is primus inter pares. First among equals. The important word there is equals, not first. And the emphasis in this government seems to be on first. We are calling on the prime minister to allow her ministers to function. And it is clear that the minister responsible for the blue economy was either not allowed to function, but he definitely was not functioning. Where was he on Saturday? Where was she on Saturday? We know where she was. We're not sure where he was. But if that is their dilemma, the people of this country don't have to live with that dilemma. We are promoting the concept of team. The best governments in this country have always been the governments in which prime ministers have allowed their ministers to function. The ministers in this country are not being allowed to function, and it is not my style and content to come to a crisis and to ask the prime minister to fire anybody. The chief culprit in this is the prime minister, who has not allowed her ministers to function. I'm not going to ask her to fire anybody. I'm going to ask her to allow her ministers to function in 2024. It is about time that we know who the ministers are. It is about time that the ministers be given the responsibility that the public pays them for. The prime minister must take the blame for this. I am going to say something to you about what has been happening in Oistins over the last 6 years. And I'm going to say it briefly. I want to thank the producers and the directors of the Marcy Week Show for giving us the opportunity that we don't normally get with the rest of the media. I mean, Ms. Weeks allows us an hour and a half to explain things. We produced photographs last night on the Marcy Week Show, which proved and demonstrated that some 6 years ago, we took a proposal to the government. We met with all of the fisher folk in Oistins, the fishermen, some now dead, most alive, including the gentleman who lost his 3 boats. He was there, Mr. Bourne. Other fishermen and boat owners from Oistins were there. The fish vendors from Oistins were there. All persons connected with the fishing industry were present. Permit me to say, pardon me, I organized that meeting. I called in Sir Ralph Williams, the engineer Ralph Adams, and another engineer, Mr. Herbert, came at some point. And Mr. Williams was very good to us. He brought in an engineer from overseas and introduced the concept of a vehicle to haul those boats out of the sea at Oistins. If government had accepted those proposals, it's in photographs. I have the photographs. The photographs are there. And if this project had come to fruition, several of those boats which perished on Monday would not have perished. They're based at Oistins, but they operate out of the Bridgetown complex for the purpose of safekeeping. If our plans had come to fruition, if the government had accepted our plans from the engineers, from the boat owners, from the fisher folk of Oistins, from your humble servant here, we would have made progress. Those men would not have been scrambling around on Monday looking for a place to keep their boats. So I want the record to be set clear that this is something the people in Oistins had agitated for some years ago. There are photographs to support it. And the government, for one reason or another, has not responded to the proposal that we made with the assistance of engineers. We had also discussed the construction of a dock. The engineers rejected that and said that the dock would have produced unstable waters, and the same thing that happened on Monday would likely have happened at Oistins. And that is why the engineers say let us purchase this vehicle out of the United States. We saw photographs of it. We produced those photographs last night. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Government disappeared and reappeared on Saturday at a cricket final, and is now pretending that they're shedding tears across at the Bridgetown facility. We're not accepting the tears. As Mr. Dujon said, speaking on behalf of the fishermen and the boat owners, we want compensation. We want just resolution to a problem that has been created in part by the government, and don't let them tell you that this is not a political issue. It is a political issue. Political decisions lead to political action, and that is what governments are there for. And if the government is involved in the matter, we as an opposition party are entitled to give a response. As I said before, we are entitled to scrutinize, to analyze, to criticize, and when needs be, to chastise. That is our duty. That is our function as a constructive opposition, and we intend to agitate on behalf of the fishermen and the fisherfolk and the fish vendors of this country for justice to come to these people. We know that fishing is not seen as one of the glamorized economic activities like the others that have received massive millions of dollars in support, but for some reason, when it comes to the fisher folk, as Felicia said, you blame the victim. You find all kinds of reasons to blame the victim. Oh, he has no insurance and he should have gone elsewhere. We understand why people hold these views. We understand why there are people on social media, I call them sycophants, people who are singing the government song for some reward. And look, it is now becoming tiring. The government is silent, but the government is encircled by these social media sycophants who are demonizing the fisher folk. And I want to say as well that this is a government that speaks about protecting the reputations of people in cyberspace. And the most vicious and malicious and scurrilous attacks on social media are being made by the government supporters. We are being abused every day in the most vile language. People are coming on and calling us the worst kinds of things, and they're supporting a government that claims that it wants to pass a cybercrime bill. These are the inconsistencies. Look, I don't want to go on too long. Media, I don't want to keep you here the whole day, but we are placing our voices firmly in the corner of the fisher folk as people who are legitimately entitled to pursue their living in this country with dignity and with equal rights as anyone else, whether it is in agriculture, whether it is in tourism, whether it is in manufacturing that receive government assistance, or whether it is those who have been receiving assistance for social deviance. Because we now know in Barbados, nobody has contradicted us, that this government was compensating people for social deviance as a disincentive against social deviance. Let me put it that way. Who are the fishermen? The fishermen didn't kill nobody. They didn't kill anybody. They're just trying to feed their families. They're just trying to accumulate generational wealth like anybody else. What is so wrong with being a boat owner? What is so wrong with being a fisherman? Why, as Felicia said, you have to blame the victim? Why do you have to look for some excuse to continue to stigmatize these people as the least among us? They are among us, they are part of us, and this Democratic Labour Party will defend their right to an economic existence. We stand in their corner. We are calling on the government to compensate them. As I said last night on Marcia's show, I don't want to play lawyer at this point in time, but if I have to give legal advice, I will. And I want to say to them that when their boats were bundled into that small space, the government impliedly accepted responsibility for the storage of those boats in that dangerous facility. And therefore, they must compensate them. It is not a moral obligation. I think it comes to the point of a legal obligation. And if not moral and legal, it is certainly a political obligation. We hope that the government intends to compensate them. We hope that the government will enter into arrangements, similarly as they entered into arrangements to repaint Kensington and to paint Oyston's red. We are calling on them now, having painted Oyston's red, to paint the lives of the boat owners. Don't put the boats in red, but rebuild some boats, let the boat owners choose the color, but assist them in getting back into their livelihood. That is what we are calling on this government to do. I mentioned something about Kensington, and I think Senator Walters wants to say something about Kensington, is it? Yes. This is about team. We're here as a team. This is no one-man thing. So I invite Senator Walters to address issues pertaining to Kensington.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leader of the Opposition. Good morning to all the media and to all our viewers online. I think it is important for us at this juncture to take a review of the activities in June as it relates to the ICC T20 World Cup. The government officials had touted this as an event that would benefit Barbados tremendously. They identified that it would bring upgrades to the facilities, namely Kensington Oval. It would revitalize cricket in Barbados. It will bring tourists to Barbados and economic activity to the country, and it will benefit small business owners as well. Now, this is not to rehash a lot of what has been said, but it's important because what the government does is that the government puts information out there, and quite often the information changes depending on who is speaking. And what I am going to go through with you today is the events of the World Cup, what has been promised in terms of spending, what has been promised in terms of the results and the benefits, so that we bring some balance and truth to the conversation around Kensington and the ICC T20 World Cup. Now, the upgrades to the facility from the start, the communication from the government, again, depending on who is speaking. About 6 months ago, the end of November, December, we heard the government was going to borrow $50 million to redevelop Kensington Oval. There was an outcry in the public domain because of the quantum of that sum. And then a few weeks later, we heard half of it would go to the revitalization of cricket in Barbados, and the other half would go to the redevelopment of Kensington Oval and some facilities in Barbados. We heard they would address lighting, renovation of bathroom areas and facilities, I think the saunas and stuff like that for the players. And we also heard about an indoor facility for training using the latest technology as well, so that our cricketers will have all-round facility to train in. Then we heard in April that, this is from Kensington Oval Management Inc. now, that they have spent $30 million so far, with an estimated $5 to $9 million in addition has to spend to complete the project. So we had $50 million in the first instance, then we have $25 million in the second instance, now we have $39 million in the third instance, and just before the commencement of the games, we had the government officials coming and telling us they spent just over $40 million to redevelop Kensington. So different persons giving different accounts of monies. And the Democratic Labour Party is on record asking about how much money is going to be spent, where it's going to be spent, and asking for justification. Now, understand that this $40 million or $50 million or whatever is spent, which we will uncover soon, there is no indoor facility complete either. So in every discussion about the redevelopment, they spoke about lighting, scoreboards, the bathrooms. They spoke about this indoor facility, which is now being pushed to phase 2, but all the money has been gone. We have not heard about the revitalization of cricket that was going to be spent, that we were going to spend $25 million of that $50 million on. I think the opposition leader has also already alluded to the fact that he has engaged in conversation with the Public Accounts Committee and the Auditor General.
Yes.
And we leave that investigation up to them to bring the numbers, how it has been spent, who spent it, and where it has gone. But what I think the public needs to be aware of is that Kensington Oval Management Inc. is supported by the taxpayers of this country. They do not earn their way. And since 2019, the government has pumped $7.5 million into the operations at Kensington Oval. They've also put another $7.26 million into capital works at Kensington Oval. The last 6 years, taxpayers have contributed $14.76 million into an entity that does not earn its way. And these numbers come from the estimates of revenue and expenditure from the government. This is not me pulling numbers out of a hat. This is what the taxpayers contribute to the existence of Kensington Oval. So for the government, and you made a point about political decisions. Kensington Oval Management did not make this decision to bring the Cricket World Cup. It was a political decision to put an additional burden on the management of that establishment to support a loan of $50 million. In addition to a loan that has not been already exhausted of the 2007 World Cup. Now, I don't think that we have been opposed to the existence of the World Cup and to Barbados participating in the final or any other games. But the amount of money that has been spent is unjustifiable. And unaccounted for, and we will get to the bottom of that through the Public Accounts Committee.
Yes.
But I wanted to put context into this, the fact that here's a political decision to put $50 million of debt on an entity that is already not paying its way, that is upheld by our taxpayers' dollars. And then from 2019 up to the current financial year, we look at the books, $14.7 million of taxpayers' revenue. So this is a poor political decision to start. You had countries that opted out of this, of participation. And we are not seeing the benefits, and you will see that we have not seen the benefits as I go through the presentation. But the government, in its revenue and expenditure for this year, has also shared with Barbados that they are in financial deficit of almost $1 billion, meaning that the government alone does not earn enough revenue to cover its expenses. $1 billion short, but these are the kind of financial decisions that is putting on the entities that are already $2 million short in this year, and $14.76 million short over the last 6 years. And we have to have a press conference on the financial matters of this country as it relates to the usage of financial resources. Because this government also taxed Barbadians from 2018 in excess of $1 billion in new taxes.
Yes. New taxes.
But let me continue. So we have not seen the development of cricket as it relates to the $25 million. We've heard how they have spent the $50 million plus, because they also paid for walk stadiums. They also redeveloped Oystons. They also spent some money which is incomplete in Baxter's Road. We've also seen spending in Pelican Village. We have seen a lot of spending. We've seen the BTMI take some of our athletes or cricketers and promote the Cricket World Cup outside of Barbados. This is our money. It is not only concentrated on a $50 million loan, but I am sure that when then that the government of Barbados, through its taxpayers, has spent in excess of $75 million on this effort, on this 1 month. Okay, visitor arrivals. On the 14th of April, the chairman of the National Organizing Committee of the World Cup is on record stating that the World Cup is expected to bring an additional 25,000 people to the shores of Barbados. And a lot of people feel that as an opposition, we come here just to talk. We don't have our facts. And I want just to share this with you. If you can hear it.
We expect 25,000 extra people outside of what happened already during June. June is a 12 period for tourism development, but those 25,000 people, we're looking at 150,000 room nights. Just let me say that on Radiant, they're only going to be 9 days of working. for the other 21 days, visitors are going to be here. So we're going to
Start it over.
That's Mr. Lynn.
We expect 25,000 extra people outside of what would happen normally during June. June is a trough period for tourism development, but those 25,000 people, we're looking at 150,000 room nights. Just let me say that one more.
You heard it. 25 additional thousand people expected Cricket World Cup. That is a justification that has been put on the spend. Remember, the government is defending their commitment, their political decision to spend in excess of $50 million on 1 month, or 30 days. Now, on the 28th of June, he has changed his mouth, and he's on record now saying that the original projection was 25,000 to 30,000 people coming to Barbados.
Additional.
No, full stop. He's now dropped the additional. I'm not going to play the clip because we don't have a lot of time. But I'll tell you now, and he's also projected 40,000, just shy of 40,000 visitors in June. Barbados and members of the media. In 2016, 42,565 persons visited Barbados in June, and there was no ICC T20 final in Barbados. In 2017, 44,957 persons visited these shores in June, and there were no ICC T20 cricket. In 2018, 46,334 persons visited these shores, and there was no ICC cricket. In 2019, 50,160 persons visited these shores, and there was no ICC T20 cricket. These statistics have come from the Barbados Statistical Service. They're online for you to see. So we did not have to spend $75 million, $50 million, $20 million, $10 million in any of these years to get the amount of visitors we got. 40,000 visitors in June is a failure and cannot be touted as this, and cricket cannot be touted, as a success to visitor arrivals in this country. The problem this country and this government faces, this government has been unable to attract tourists to our country since COVID. We are still way below the visitor arrivals when all the other territories have surpassed their pre-COVID numbers, and they are struggling to get it right. So the facts are there. He changed his mouth from 25,000 additional to 25 to 30,000 people visiting, but even with that projection, it is way below. And $50 million would have been well spent in other areas, especially now that we have to deal with compensation, especially now that we still have to deal with QEH and dilapidated school infrastructure. This is not to say we would not have enjoyed, we could have enjoyed cricket if we would have spent $5 or $7 million on the oval.
Like the Trinidadians.
We would have enjoyed cricket the same way. But this decision is a failed decision. And we have had enough experience now after hosting cricket in 2007, 2010, and now 2024. The government of Barbados did not make revenue from this exercise. We did not have any tax intake from the ticket sales, from the importation of goods for resale, from the importation of services that were identified to deal with the cricket. All concessions, tax-free. The commitment of the taxpayers of Barbados was to spend money with the hopes that it would make the government look good. But the results show that it did not do that as well. It also was to benefit our small business owners. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You can go to the press to see the complaints from the taxi men saying they were sidelined. The vendor association saying that they were not consulted. The complaints from the vendors for not making money. Who once said that they could have stayed home in their shop? And you understand that vendors were originally charged $1,000 a day. $1,000 a day. $1,000 a day means that they would have to make in excess of $4,000 in sales to start, because they have to pay for the food, they have to pay for the setup and infrastructure and the staffing, and then they go pay $1,000. Then they're not going to make anything. So this was not designed for them either. So all accounts, this has not been the success that the government has promoted it to be. It is clear. The results show this. This is not what the Democratic Labour Party is parading on. We are saying the facts show, from the visitor arrivals, from the different conversations in terms of the amount spent on the Kensington Oval, to the reports and the complaints from those who should have benefited from this exercise. So political decisions, political results.
Correct. Political response.
Thank you.
Thank you. Something happened in Barbados, I think, over the last 48 hours. We heard that a senior official in government threatened a school that they would pass a law to control the operations of private schools. Well, last I checked, that's authoritarianism. This government is on a trajectory of dictatorship. Sometime last year, another school in Barbados went to NIFCA. And NIFCA, the NCF told them, look, you don't have the right to freedom of expression. Now this same government is threatening owners of private schools. They're not entering into discussions with the schools. They're saying, look, we're going to pass a law to control you. And that is the kind of government, while you were speaking, Ryan, that occurred to me. That is the kind of government we have in this country now. And that is the kind of government that Barbadians must continue to resist. A government that is dictatorial, authoritarian, a government that wishes to enter into every area of life and threaten people and cajole people and force people to do what they want them to do. I want to say that we at this table and we in this party support the right of private schools and private entities to function in accordance with the law. And we reject that threat made by government to pass a law to control what private schools can and cannot do. What they're going to do next, control the curriculum. We are beginning to become aware that we're living in a dangerous country. A country in which government is just issuing threats when it isn't neglectful on the one hand, on the other hand, it is issuing threats to people. Ryan made some reference, and I'm moving quickly, members of the media. Ryan made a reference to the PAC. On the last occasion I was here, I had an exchange, quite memorable exchange with Mr. Joseph of Barbados Today in PAC. I'm not going to, the PAC has been meeting, we meet again on Monday, right, Ryan? Monday. I'm not going to, we are meeting in camera, we are meeting behind closed doors. So it is not for me, it would be inappropriate for me to tell you what is going on there. Well, I can tell you what is going on there, but I can't tell you how it is going on. I will repeat to you, and I think I'm entitled to say this, that some time ago after the budget speech, the Prime Minister promised Barbadians that she is embarking on an inquiry into hope and the question of housing. I can say to you, as I said to you on the last occasion, that it is my desire, acting on behalf of the people of Barbados, to have housing placed on the agenda of the PAC. We return to the PAC on Monday, and we are trying desperately to have that placed on the agenda. And I'm entitled to say to you that we are doing that. That is what we are doing. As to how we're functioning in there, I can't tell you that. But I will tell you this, there are only 3 opposition members in there. That is myself, Senator Walters, and Senator Watson. Next week, I want, or let me put it differently, I want to say to you, media, and I want to say to you, Barbadians, that next week we are returning to the Public Accounts Committee to attempt to have housing placed on the agenda for investigation. I'm entitled to say to you as well that we have written to the Auditor General and we have invited him to produce a report for us into the Comey spending. We are entitled to do that, and I'm entitled to say that to you as chairman of that committee. That is what we are attempting to do. We have a sense as to what Barbadians want to find out. We have a sense as to what Barbadians consider and deem important. Ryan, we are coming back next week after the next PAC meeting to tell the people of Barbados how successful we have been in having these matters placed on the agenda. This government must not escape the scrutiny of Barbadians. I repeat, we return to the Public Accounts Committee on Monday, and I know and I can feel the pulse of Barbadians that this is a matter of $60 million of taxpayers' money spent, and the government must give account for it. That is what we are intending to do. That is what we are trying to do at the Public Accounts Committee. As I've said to you, I can tell you what we're doing. I cannot tell you how we are doing it. Yeah, I stopped short of that, but we are going back on Monday. Barbadians, please continue to support us on the Public Accounts Committee as we attempt to highlight these issues. It is the taxpayers' money. An account must be given for the taxpayers' money. I will say no more of that for the time being, except to tell you, Barbadians, that if you wish to hear us again after the next Public Accounts Committee, you will hear us. Enough on that for the time being. It's a matter of some regret. We want to express condolences to the relatives of all those persons who lost their lives all too early. Between the last press conference and this one, we are living in an environment now, and I hope we never get used to death. Apparently we've lost another person this morning. We lost another 2 earlier in the week. This is five murders in 5 days. This is sad. This is not something we will ever get used to. We held a very successful national dialogue on crime, and it will be successful only if we follow through on it. I want to thank the panelists who were there. I'm speaking off memory. It was Dr. Aline, it was Lamamba Batson, it was Easton, what's Easton's last name?
Branch.
Easton Branch. Miss Aline was the moderator. Miss Marcia Weeks, they were on the panel.
Bertie Hines.
And Mr. Bertie Hines, former Deputy Commissioner of Police. We consider that the night was successful, but we would not consider that we've had success unless we follow through on that. In the climate of this rampant crime, we want to transfigure the brilliant information and the efforts made at that dialogue into a commission on crime. We want to establish a commission on crime. We want to go across this country, and we want Barbadians to come out, because it all begins with dialogue. It all begins with people expressing their fears. It all begins with people expressing their anxieties. It all begins with people generally saying how the community is reacting to this. And we want to establish a commission on crime, which will go around this country. We started at the Grand Salle. We don't expect everybody to come to the Grand Salle. We want to go into the unglamorous spots, the school halls, the church halls of this country, and literally to take evidence from people as to this crime that is going on, because the government is silent. The person who talks about everything in this country is climate change and cricket and not a word on crime. So if we can't get the government to speak on crime, we're going to speak on it. And we are not only going to speak on it, but we are going to ask the public to speak on it, because this is something that requires dialogue. We need to understand each other. We need to understand why these young men are doing what they're doing. And we will not understand it by staying in our houses and staying on the phones and speculating. We want to establish a commission to go into the highways and the byways and the school halls and the church halls in this country, and to let citizens gather and to tell us as a commission what are their views as to the causes of this scourge that is afflicting our daily lives. That is what we want to do. We've started some names. I want to say this not as a notice but a warning to those persons who were on that panel, that we wish to have them on that commission. Persons centric, and I hope they will consent and agree to sit on that commission, because if they say you can't politicize issues, this certainly is one that you can't politicize. So there will be no partisan boundaries here. We want to invite good Barbadians who have an interest in a bright future of this country to sit on that commission with us over the next, David, week or so. We will name those persons and invite those persons to sit on that commission and to go across this country, seeking solutions. And we will seek solutions only after we understand what are the causes. And we will ask Barbadians to come out and contribute their own ideas as to the causes and their own ideas as to what is the solution. There must be a solution somewhere. There must be a solution somewhere. So that's an announcement I wish to make today. I want to thank you all for listening, for coming. I want to thank Senator Walters for an excellent presentation. I want to thank Ms. Dujon for an excellent presentation. May I say that Ms. Dujon intends to be a candidate in the next election. We have no secrets around here. This is the quality. This is the quality of young people that this country needs to hear from. Yes, in the persons of Senator Walters and Ms. Dujon. This is what we will present through these media conferences to Barbadians. The quality that is available in this party and the quality that is available to Barbadians. Media, I want to thank you very, very much for attending. Thanks for your attention. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Yes. Questions, of course. We wouldn't deprive you, Calvin.
All right. Calvin Munzie Nation News. Just a few questions from me. We're going to start with the issue of the fishing sector and the damage that it has sustained.
Yes.
Obviously, with one of the key pillars, one of the pillars of this economy down for the count as a result of the hurricane, it is bound to have, beyond just the scope of the livelihood of these fisher folks, is bound to have some ripple effects throughout the economy.
Yes.
What are you anticipating that is likely to be that ripple effect within the economy, maybe cost of living, cost of with one of these proteins now out of being short, etc. What are you anticipating from the opposition?
Carl, when you focused on the economic fallout, I want to focus on the social fallout. What is a man who has been working for the last 20, 25, 30, 40 years? What does he do when he wakes up in the morning and discovers he has no job? What does he do? There must be a social fallout. I mean, he must consider the options. He wants to survive. And I want to say to you that that has social implications. The sociologists will definitely tell you that it has social implications. What does he do? Does he find a new career in his 40s and his 50s? I don't think he can. So that there will be the social fallout. We all know what is the economic fallout. Higher prices for imported fish. We know what is the economic fallout. But the dangerous dimension here is the social fallout. What does that man do? What are his thoughts when he wakes up and discovers, as one told me this week, he cannot pay his rent? What's he going to do? So my concern, Senator, how Felicia feels about this as well. What is the social fallout? That is a concern that we have. We'll probably bear the higher prices. We will probably appreciate the circumstances, but it is that dangerous dimension of the social fallout. The options that may not or may be available to him. How does he function?
I see Ryan as the business, Senator Walters as the businessman is jumping on the bit to answer the question.
No, not really. I support the sentiments of the leader of the opposition. It's not only bow earner, but those who's going to bone the fish, those who are going to sell the fish. There is the small businessman as well that buys our fish to sell, we sell on Friday nights and so forth. So it is going to have an economic,
and their families.
and the family. So it's going to have an economic impact. I don't think we can estimate that or value that, and that is a significant challenge that we have in Barbados. COVID presented an opportunity for the government to take a fresh look and perspective on small business in Barbados. Coming out of COVID, after the 2022 general election, the government formed its cabinet and there was no minister of small business. Small business dissipated. When last have you heard a conversation on small business in this country? Statistics show that 92% of our businesses are small business. 92%. This was, I think it was done in 2014, 2015 study done on the Democratic Labour Party. We have not had information coming to us about what is it today after COVID. We don't hear anybody talking about these things. You have a situation where the government cannot even quantify the losses in the fishing industry. They can't do it because they allow these vulnerable sectors to go on willy-nilly. They do not try to harness them, do not try to bring them into a safe space. And I'm not talking about a formal economy that is drawing revenue or seems to be just drawing taxation from them. I'm speaking of recognizing the challenges and the benefits of a sector and being able to formulate a plan that deals sufficiently with it. The challenges are there. The insurance for boating is nothing new. You know, these are issues that cannot now be brought to the fore as though they're new. But if they were focused on a small business sector, maybe they would have been considered. Right? So in COVID, I draw the reference to COVID because in COVID, they valued the hospitality sector, they valued the agriculture sector, and they were able to compensate these sectors. You know what the small business people got during COVID? A $250 check. Small businesses got $250 checks. Well, the bigger businesses that were organized, they got $250 million. So that is my contribution is that the government lost the opportunity after COVID, during and after COVID, to harness our small business sector. It cannot be focused on putting small vendors in the middle of Broad Street for visitors that come off of Kensington to go and shop. The focus is wrong. The focus is all about optics and all about what they think they are doing. But they have not dealt substantially. There's no ministry in charge of small business that could say to you that we are going to do this for the small business people in this country, whether it's fishing, whether it's agriculture, whether it's tourism, whether it's retail, there's none. And that is the question that the government has to come and answer. They have to respond to that because they now have a minister of business. And she speaks about energy and big business and retail business and all that. She don't speak to the small man.
Well, I just want to add that the entire issue also have to focus on how we treat human rights in this country. The fundamental rights of every citizen, doesn't matter as to what kind of employment that you have or livelihood that you have, that everyone should be treated equally. And I think this is a question that we have been raising. Why do our fisher folks, why do our farmers, why do certain sectors of our society are treated by this government the way that they've been treated? And I believe that it's important that when we think or even speak about compensation, it's really a matter of justice. It's really a matter of justice, and what we saw and what taxpayers need to keep in mind. When we compensate persons, it is us taxpayers' monies that is paying for mismanagement and poor judgment of government policies that should have been in place. So the reality is that we need to start thinking of how we treat human rights in this country. The right to live in a society where you have, the freedom to earn a living. And when government ministers make poor judgment within their ministry, they have to be held accountable. And so we are hoping at the end of this press conference that the Prime Minister and the ministers responsible will update us as to when they will make an assessment in terms of how they will be compensating our fisher folks. We cannot run behind that because they have to survive as well. And we're not going to victim blame them, and we're not going to gaslight them either. Compensation is a matter of justice, an atonement for the mismanagement and poor judgment that was done for the few days ago.
If I may follow up that question, the question here. I understand the point you were making about moral responsibility and legal responsibility to
Yes.
compensate
Yes.
those fisher folks. However, I'm still trying to understand where does personal responsibility factor into the equation.
Mhm.
As with any business,
Mhm.
you have a responsibility to secure your assets.
Yes.
And the culture of bailout, as we would have experienced during ELSA, yes, we have to protect the most vulnerable, but obviously, as Ms. Dujan pointed out, this is taxpayers' money that you're talking about. How do we square that?
We understand the issue of personal responsibility, and we understand the issue of personal responsibility in relation to everyone, whether you're a fisherman, a fireman, or the chief executive officer of the largest insurance company in the world. Personal responsibility applies to everyone, and it applies equally. I want you to understand, Colvin, the circumstances which confronted those fisher folk and those boat owners. They put their boats in the only place that they felt they could. The alternative was to leave them at sea. Some of them sailed from Oisins, those boats, down to this harbor, and the government undertook that impliedly, if not expressly, and I'm discussing law now, the government impliedly undertook that would be literally safe harbor. It was not. We have suggested to the government, and I understand your statement about personal responsibility, and I understand what Ms. Dujan is saying about blaming the victim, but they took the boats where they thought was the only available safe space. We are saying that if the government had ignored the cricket for a few hours, yes, that the government would have come up with a scheme to take those boats onto the several open areas of Barbados, in spite of the question of personal responsibility, in spite of the question of failure to insure, and there are a lot of cars and houses out there not insured. Yes, there are lots. But as Mr. Dujan said, don't let us start to find ways to extricate ourselves from responsibility, from governmental and collective and national responsibility by looking at issues of personal responsibility in relation to the boat owners. Yes, they do have a personal responsibility, but yes, this government had an obligation to protect them, and they put them in the only space of it that they thought was available. If they had spent some time, they would have got the same company that is now taking the boats, the destroyed boats, out of the small harbor. That same company does haulage of boats, and that same company, from the time this hurricane was known about, that company should have been hauling those boats onto the several playing fields of Barbados, around Bridgetown, around St. Michael. The garrison is there, the BDF is there, Colvin. They could have taken these boats to so many places, but the boat people were vulnerable. And they placed the boats in the only place that they felt was safe, and they placed it in a government facility. So the question of personal responsibility pales insignificantly when we consider that there's a governmental and political and national and collective responsibility to ensure that your boat owners are as safe as your hoteliers, are as safe as your manufacturers. Yes? We all have that responsibility, and we all must accept that responsibility if we claim to care for each other. That is responsibility that we must accept, but we all are frail when it comes to personal responsibility. And as much as they may have failed in exercising personal responsibility, they're no different from any of us. As I said last night, he who is without sin, let him cast the first stone.
I also just wanted to, I was just trying to give my colleague a chance to.
Yes, yes, you're the leader.
I realize that. The issue of gun violence as well too.
Yes.
That seems to be spiraling at this point.
Mhm.
We've had a press conference from the top brass of the police
Yes.
force.
SOS, save our son.
Exactly.
Yes.
What the explanation that they have put forward, that this doesn't seem to be gang related, it seems to be, other issues.
Mhm.
I from what we are seeing on the ground, we are not sure what is really happening. I just want you to just give us a comment on what you are seeing developing at this point.
I can tell you 3 words. I don't know. And that is why last week this opposition office came up with a national dialogue. We went to the people. And that is why this opposition office and this party intend to go to the people, to establish a commission on crime. We want to know. We don't know. Colvin, we don't know. We are as vulnerable as the other citizen out there, and we want to engage with our citizenry, and we want to find out. But not only do we want to find out, we want to solve the problem. And that's why I told you a few minutes ago, we are establishing a commission on crime so that your questions can be answered by the people of Barbados, so that we can't wake up tomorrow and endure another murder. We can't do it. We cannot get accustomed to it. I was eating my breakfast and I heard that a man was killed around the corner from me in King Street. My office is on Painful Street. That is how close it comes. It is on our doorstep. And we are all victims. We are collateral victims. We who live in fear of crime are as much victimized as those sometimes who see it. We want to know. So my simple answer to you, we don't know. I wish the government would admit that it does not know. But the government isn't saying anything. It is this opposition office and it is this Democratic Labour Party that is saying something. It's the shows like the Marcia Week show and my other brother, Politically Incorrect. They're saying something. But we want to bring all of those voices together. And it's Lamamba that's saying something. Yeah? We want to bring all of those voices together as a national collective and ask ourselves the question, are we responsible for this? And if we are responsible partly for it, we are parents, we are neighbors. As Derek said at the dialogue, as long as we lock our houses and go in, we don't care. We don't get shot. Our son doesn't get shot, so we don't care. Well, we want to demonstrate that this office cares, that this Democratic Labour Party cares, and we want to concede that we don't know the answers, and we want to find the answers, and that is why our Commission on Crime is going to be established so that your question can find an answer. And we hope that the media will be involved as well. And we hope you support it. We hope you will come out at night or in afternoons. We probably prefer to meet on afternoons into those school halls. And hear the real people speak. Hear the victims speak. We want people who are involved in some way on the blocks. We want to hear from them as well. We don't want the philosophers from the university. We want the people who speak are on the ground out there, because this is a national crisis. It's a crisis, It is a crisis. Any of us who has a teenage son, it is a problem, because our teenage son is vulnerable. One mistake, one wrong contact, one telephone call, one online contact, one wrong girlfriend. I heard you. Yeah. Our children are one heartbeat away from involvement in crime. It is insidious. It's very easy to become involved in crime and deviance in Barbados. We're all victims. We're all exposed. We're all vulnerable.
and you can compensate it for it.
If I may just ask one final question.
Yes, please.
Just switching gears and turning the spotlight internally, just briefly. The Chief Justice would have given yet another opportunity for
He did?
mediation. Well, asking you to go back to the table and mediate. Could you give us an update if any such overtures and have been made? And
I don't know where that came from. I went to court and I sat and behaved myself. It was last week or week before last. I wouldn't report on anything the Chief Justice said. I wouldn't do that.
No, well, I'm trying to find out if there has been any attempt at mending fences and mediation internally, and then just rift within the party at this point.
We are pressing on. We are pressing on with the people's business. The people's business is more urgent than any strife that is taking place elsewhere. We are concerned with the people's business. Look, 2 Saturdays ago, a group of us, about 20, Derek, went into the constituency of Christchurch South. This Saturday, I think we are going, and we can tell them, let them go up there and prepare for us. We are going to meet at a point where 3 constituencies converge. St. Michael North, St. Michael West Central, and St. Michael
Northeast.
And we will touch you too, St. Michael Northwest and Capefield. That is what this party is doing. We are going to the people. We don't want to sacrifice the people's business for the business that fascinates you. The salacious business. This business, the people's business, is taking priority. And this has been a deliberate effort on our parts. Yes, that we will not be slowed down by. I told you on the last occasion we were here, and people laughed at me. I said, we intend to be ready when an election is called. A 69-year-old Democratic Labour Party will not sit down and allow an election to be called unless we are ready. We are making ourselves ready. I told you on the last occasion that we are about to write a manifesto and that the ideas for that manifesto are in train. We are about the people's business. Colvin, I know it is salacious. I know it reads sweet.
It's not salacious.
I know it is sweet reading. And I know I pick up my Saturday Sun. Oh man, that it is sweet. But not as sweet. That may be sweet, but there's bitterness in the lives of people. High prices, electricity bills they can't pay.
Well, Mr. Opposition Leader, if I may just continue. What I'm asking here, you're saying that you are taking on the heavy burden of the national responsibility, the national issues that we are facing.
Not me alone, the collective, the party. Yes, that is our duty.
However, based on the perception the public has, the party is basically hobbling on one leg still with that internal rancor within the party at this point. That's the perception. So I'm asking you, giving you opportunity now to disavow persons of that perception by telling us that there is some mediation taking place.
You know, the media is a very powerful institution. And sometimes the media likes to tell people what they're thinking.
No, that's not true at all.
I can tell you, look, we get so many calls here. We get so many calls at George Street, WhatsApp, all kinds of communications. We are ready. The people of Barbados are saying that they're ready. So if you have analysts telling the people of Barbados, that's not what you're thinking. I want to tell you what you're thinking. And what you are thinking is that the party is hobbling. Colvin, the party is not hobbling. We didn't hobble through Rendezvous and Fair Home Gardens 2 Saturdays ago. And we are going to be in Grisettes, Long Gap, Capefield, and Whitehall. And we are not going to be hobbling. And trust me, Colvin, when we go to people's doors, they're warm. They are warm. They are ready. They want us to return to government, Colvin. You don't know that. Well, you can come with us on Saturday, meet with us, and we will be in uniform. We have our blue hats, our yellow hats, and our charisma shirt.
But I think
we are going to be ready.
What I want to add, and I think it's very important, and I think that question and concern will rise quite a lot. But I think at the end of the day, it's about your duty to country, and I think that it's very important that we remember what we came here to do and why we came to do what we're doing. And the majority of times, yes, people will say, well, this is a DLP and we may be hobbling, but we're moving on. And that's important, that we take our responsibility, our duty, regardless of what is happening, and do what is required, because there are people out there, and we all know that cannot speak for themselves, that cannot stand up, and we have to be there for them. We have to fight for the voiceless. We have to fight for those rights that are being infringed upon. Whether we can move quickly or whether we can move the way that you said, hobbling, but we have to do it, because when we're out there, we have a duty, and that duty requires of us to forget the personal self, the self-interest,
Yes.
and put the people and the country first.
Yes.
And I think that is more important than anything else, because there are people out there, and I'm saying that from a personal experience. It was my very first time canvassing in Barbados. And what I saw and experienced, I thought, well, you're a Democratic Labour Party and you're doing that, but your experience of what you see, it cannot be about self or party. It's about the duty that you decided this is what you're going to be doing, and you're going to be fighting for people that don't even like you sometimes, but you're still going to fight for them. And I think this is what we have to continue to remind the Barbadian populace, that the Democratic Labour Party, we're going to be doing this, not for ourselves, because we have to do it for you, because it is our duty. Because if we don't do it for you, who's going to do it? Some persons within our society cannot fight for themselves. They've been victimized, they've been ostracized because of the positions that they have taken to even challenge or speak up against the government, not only on social media, but anywhere. People have been silenced. So right now is not the time for us to think about, and I'm not saying it's not important. What I'm saying is that there's a bigger fight out there, that we have a moral duty.
Correct.
And we have to remember that duty that we have as citizens.
Yes.
Okay, my brother?
I would not persist.
But we still buy this side of the paper. Yo, did you have anything? You're satisfied. Mr. Roberts?
Just want to jump back on the question of crime, basically, because I know you said you're going to have discussions and dialogue with
Yeah,
people
Commission
around
on
the
Crime.
country.
Commission on Crime.
Yeah, but I just wanted to get from your thoughts, basically, as the issue of crime. Do you think, from your perspective, what strategies you think should be employed to deal with the problem? Because we're seeing many attempts coming from the government. I mean, we've been talking about putting more judges on magistrates and so on. But from your perspective, do you think enough is being done? And what perspective you can bring to the table to at least help address the crisis that we are facing?
You, as a opposition, you expect me to say that not enough is being done, so I won't disappoint you. Look, you mentioned judges. Not enough is being done. The government keeps repeating, "Oh, we've increased the number of judges." Let me say it to you, Mr. Roberts. They have increased the number of judges without increasing the ancillary staff that is needed to run those courts. And I'm not going to bring any secrets out of school, but the public needs to know this, that although the numbers of judges in the criminal courts have increased, the output of work has not proportionately increased. And the public needs to know that. I sit and I see the juries coming out at 10 and 10:30. Probably went in there at 9:30. A lot of cases are being adjourned. A lot of criminal cases are being adjourned. So that if the government wants the people in Barbados to believe that there's this intense work going on with the appointment of new judges, that is not true. The workload has not necessarily increased, because the staffing that ought to be available in the courts, the human infrastructure, it's absent. So they can appoint 113 judges. They have to appoint the people who do the transcription. They have to appoint clerks. So they have to be staffed. And I'm afraid, Mr. Roberts, that is not happening. So this bland boast about having increased the number of judges and expecting Barbadians to live with that has not worked. And it has not worked because the human infrastructure has not been made available. I'm sorry to bring it out, but the public needs to know that. the public needs to know that. Yes, yes.
No, no.
Um,
I have a question.
yes, please.
So I know Barbados doesn't produce the weapons being used in these related crimes. So what initiatives are do you think can be put in place to help bring to light how these weapons are being used
Mhm.
by the youth of Barbados?
I heard a former minister. I'm not going to identify him. He made a very interesting comment a couple of years ago. He said that it appears as if a lot of these weapons can come in parts. And I spoke to someone in the know recently, and he told me that there are certain parts of a weapon, a gun, that would be hard to recognize as being a part of a gun. We don't know though. We don't speak with any authority. That's the responsibility of the police. But since you focused on it, we hope to gather that kind of information during a commission on crime. Yes. And the responses, the broad responses, the military response, which Barbadians do not want, and that military response involves the police and the defense force being aggressive. Barbadians don't want that. There's also the economic response, putting people to work. There's that response as well. So there are broad responses. There's the sociological response and the psychological response and the cultural response. How do you influence people's behavior? And that cultural response is one of the more important ones. I always speak of growing up in a different society, when young people behave differently, when young people defer to authority in school, at home, saw a policeman coming down the road and people showed respect. They don't anymore. So that the cultural response is one of the important responses. And I have a concern, perhaps it is dangerous to say it, but I will say it. I have a concern that sometimes too much of our music is encouraging people, language, and the language of the music in antisocial and violent behavior. A lot of the music is violent. And I sometimes wonder, Caldwell, I'm driving in my car and I hear a car going by or a ZR. And what I'm hearing in front of myself, this is 8:30 in the morning, and these children are hearing this, and the DJ is bellowing, and he is encouraging it. All that is the culture. All that is the culture in which our young people are coming up. And you bring up a young fella in a culture that is violent. What do you expect from him? His responses, his reactions are going to be violent. So the culture, we need to work. We need to redefine ourselves culturally. We need to say who we are. Yeah, we need to establish who we are, to decide who we are. We're in a cultural crisis in this country. I mean, my generation and this generation not seeing eye to eye as to what is acceptable social behavior. Every event now for young people, everybody joking. In my time, you weren't joking. You don't know what's joking, Paul?
All right.
They don't know what is joking.
Even on the football field, you no longer say tackle.
Yeah, thank
You
you.
say take you.
Yeah.
In the volleyball, it's no
Language of
longer a
violence.
fight, it's a kill.
Yeah,
The
precisely.
whole environment.
Language of violence.
It's pervasive.
Yeah, it is. It is. Thanks for the question, though.
A follow-up question.
Yes, please.
What role do you think the justice system plays from a functionalist perspective in using perhaps all cases or like the whole bail situation to help deter the youth from continuing these violent crimes?
Some 20 or so years ago, the question of bail was revolutionized in the law. Before, if you persons who were charged for murder could not get bail. You could not get bail. And the law was liberalized, I think, around 1998 or 2000, and they started allowing people to get bail for murder. And I'm sorry, that is where it started. You know that we have a lot of people walking around this country charged with 3 murders, 2 and 3 murders. So you may want to ask whether the government should revisit the issue of bail, whether the government needs to go back to Parliament and stop allowing people to get bail for murder. That's a legal response. Should we consider that as a policy? Should the Democratic Labour Party consider that? Beg your pardon?
asking if it's constitutional to do that, to just say, well, we can allow your case to run indefinitely.
Well, it's unconstitutional to keep a man without trial indefinitely. That's unconstitutional. But I'm speaking about the question of bail. It is not unconstitutional for the parliament to go and pass a law to refuse a person bail for murder. They can do it. But they did it because I suppose at that time you didn't have this spate of murders. And it was felt that some murder accused were on charges which they felt, that the person would ultimately get off. So they were saying, well, if he has a good defense, why keep him in prison? And that the law was passed for that category of person. It was passed for that category of person. But there's another category of person who took advantage of it. The fellow who has 2 and 3 charges
But the question is
and gets bail.
I mean, the length of time that case is taken through the system.
Mhm.
If you're saying that a person is not going to be allowed bail for murder, you could have somebody on remand for
Yes, for a long
for a
time.
very long
That
time
is why you
without a
need,
trial.
and I think the courts have been trying this. I think they've been trying to give priority. There's some courts that are trying to do the murders. Yes, there's some courts that are trying to do specific offenses to get the backlog off. But obviously, murder is always going to take highest priority because you can't have a man, as you correctly said, 3-4 years on a murder charge and he can't get a trial or for any offense. But there's some courts that need to be dedicated to murder charges. Yes. Thanks for the question. That's it. Well, thanks for coming, Derek. You want to do the honors?
Thanks for following another press conference from the Office of the Leader of the Opposition. We had Comrade Lujan, Comrade Senator Walters. Kelly did a very warm and sexy invitation. We had the media with Sir Colville leading the team as usual with several warm and engaging questions. And we want to thank you for following us online. I didn't get a check to check the numbers online, but I have not. They were growing. But the leader opposition will continue to come to the public, and our offices are open. You can call us.
Give the address there, please.
It is Thomas Daniel Building on 8th Street. And we're going to be having some sessions, not only on crime, but we also want to touch on education policy, like our housing. We keep talking about agriculture as though it's dead. And having some discussions with David, we were saying it should be really a focus that we need to get and go through our primary and secondary schools talking about the value of education to an economy. So we are going to do some intervention in that area. And then, of course, the issue of sports and cultural development, the importance of making careers out of sports and careers out of culture. I just want to say that even if we take the cricket issue that we had recently, cricket is not only about those on the field playing now. The sports medicine, this preparation of grounds, the umpiring, the scoring, the people that do the video referencing and so on. This have taken a whole set of careers out of these things. And we are going to be doing some work. We're going to be not just writing a manifesto, but we're doing an engagement of the public on issues to inform us. So I want to thank the public for coming on and staying with us. And I want to thank the journalists and some of our audience for coming. We're always getting good response from these conferences, and we want to keep them going. Our office number 310-54212. 310-54212 here at 8th Street, Thomas Daniel Building. Call us, make your appointments, and come and see us. And then we will return your visit. Thanks for listening, and God bless.
God bless.
No, that's